Hey, what's up? I'm Ara, aka I Eat Zebra, and welcome back to the channel. If you are like me, you grew up slightly obsessed with James Cameron's Titanic that came out in 1997. To this day, I don't care. There was room on the door for Jack, but anyways, I digress. The tragedy of the RMS Titanic is one that has captured the hearts and minds of generations. With the 110th anniversary of the sinking coming up on April 14th, 2022, I wanted to make a special video of 5 facts you may not know about the Titanic. So let's get to it. Number 1, A Night to Remember. If you have seen James Cameron's 1997 movie Titanic, but have yet to see A Night to Remember, you need to add this to your much-watch list. I recently discovered this film that was made in 1958 based on the novel of the same name by Walter Lord, and I absolutely loved it. Walter Lord interviewed and thoroughly researched firsthand accounts from survivors and even invited some of them to the production of the film. Survivors that were alive when the film debuted, like the beloved Ava Hart, applaud the production for its accuracy. Not to discredit James Cameron, because he also did a lot of research for his film, but it predominantly focuses on Rose and Jack's love story, and less on other passengers, the crew, the ship, and so on and so forth. You can also spot a few parallels and homages to A Night to Remember in Titanic, which is a fun little Easter egg hunt for enthusiasts of the film. I was able to watch the movie on YouTube, and we'll leave a link in the description for you to check out. I highly recommend this film, which is a gross understatement. Number 2, the SSS Californian. This somewhat piggybacks off the last fact, which is the SS Californian, which was featured in A Night to Remember and focused on, unlike the movie Titanic, most know of the SSS Carpathia that came to the aid of survivors of the sinking. But the Californian most notably ignored the Titanic's distress signals, despite being the closest ship to the Titanic at a distance of roughly 10 to 15 kilometers away. Meaning they could have saved almost all of the passengers and crew had they paid attention to the distress signals that were being sent out. I will note at this time, different companies use different flares, and not all ships had 24-hour monitoring on their radios, or sometimes they didn't even have radio operators at all. However, that was not the case in the Californian. They had a radio monitor, but that radio monitor fell asleep after the ship had stopped because they had encountered the big ice field, which the iceberg that sunk the Titanic happened to be in. So, he packed it in, called it a night, and they watched the Titanic sail straight into this field of ice. The Titanic after it struck the iceberg, it used Morse lights, flare guns, and the radio to get the attention of the Californian. Unfortunately, their efforts were in vain. By the time the Californian got the message, the Carpathia had already rescued the survivors and the Titanic had sunk to the deep depths of the cold Atlantic. Number 3, alcohol saves the day. Yeah, you heard that. Alcohol saves the day. In the case of Chief Baker, Charles John Joughin. If you know how to pronounce this, please do that in the comments. But anyways, has one of the most interesting survival stories of the disaster. When the initial evacuation of women and children was called to the lifeboats, the Baker, like many others, decided to come to terms with his impending demise and figured, well, if we're going down, I might as well drink. So he decided to drink a lot of whiskey. I mean, a lot of whiskey. When it came time to abandon ship, he was able to survive the frigid temperatures due to his body being warm from the alcohol and his blood being thin enough to prevent hypothermia. He was able to swim to a lifeboat and was amongst the survivors that was rescued by the Carpathia. Number 4, the last survivor. Millvina Dean passed away on May 31st, 2009 as the last survivor of the Titanic at the age of 97. When the Titanic set sail on April 10th, 1912, Millvina Dean was just over 2 months old and is considered the youngest passenger on board and youngest survivor. I will say there were several pregnant passengers that also survived the Titanic, but due to their children being in utero, Millvina still takes the title and she actually outlived them all. Millvina, along with her mother and brother, were among the first-class passengers, and they made it into Lifeboat 10, where they awaited until the Carpathia rescued them. Number 5. The ship did not break in half. Above the surface, that is. Aha, gotcha there. As riveting as James Cameron's dramatic portrayal of the bow and stern breaking apart, and from a few eyewitness accounts, like that of Ava Hart, as I mentioned earlier, who was 7 at the time of the sinking, they all say that they saw the bow and stern break apart above the surface, and they seen it come crashing down and then eventually sinking. Well, according to the most recent research from the 2020 expedition site, the Titanic breaking in half did not occur above the surface. In the National Geographic documentary, Back to the Titanic, available on Disney+, the expert crew analyzed not only the Titanic's current state of decomposition, they realized by analyzing the debris field and the difference between the impact done to the stern versus the bow, that the ship did not break in half until it was under the water already. If the ship did break in half while above the water, the debris field would be much larger. This is also taking account the data that has been collected by multiple teams since the original discovery of the wreckage in 1985. I will note, majority of the first-hand accounts state they did not see the ship break in half, most notably the account of Second Officer Charles Lighthaller disputed that statement, and even though no one currently alive was there, I tend to lean towards his account when it comes to accuracy, based on him being a senior officer of the ship's crew, so his knowledge of, everything about the incident and what happened, in my opinion, is the most credible. Not only that, but along with the most current analysis as of 2020, and models of the ship sinking by leading experts in the field, this does seem to be most likely what happened to the ship. Well, how many of these facts did you know? And let me know if you'd like to see more videos like this. You can always send suggestions to me on Twitter at @IEatZebra or in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for future uploads. See you next time. Bye!